bullshit. Them niggas been saying we wasn't real hip-hop from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
They said we wasn't real hip-hop because we don't have no trains and no backpack. And one leg of our pants ain't rolled up to our knee and shit. You know what I'm talking about? So, you know, after a motherfucker tell you something for so long and let you know they don't want you, you know what I'm saying? After a while, nigga don't want to be down with you bitch ass niggas no more, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we got our own shit down here. A long time ago, we had our own music. The street military was putting it down. You know what I'm talking about? And when Willie D and them was coming out and talking country and letting their nuts hang, you know, that's when I grasped on to something that was special. And I ain't never looked back on them niggas, you know what I'm saying? Cause if it wasn't for us, them niggas wouldn't have been able to take no Fresh Fest tour. They wouldn't have been able to sell all them goddamn records they sold in the 80s if it wasn't for the South and the Midwest. You motherfucking niggas didn't sell all them records in New York. I know you didn't. And you niggas wouldn't have been able to take no tour if it wasn't for the rest of the country. But you know, niggas tried to shit on us, man. You know, you need to go down south, you need to shut your mouth. You know, something about shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Nigga, y'all ain't real hip-hop down there. Bitch ass nigga, well, guess what? We ain't real hip-hop down here, nigga. Nigga, stay up there where you at. Your funny-ass cars and your funny-ass houses, nigga.
Nigga had the nerve to fucking tell me niggas in the South can't spit. Bitch, I'll smack your
Fair now, what up? Carolina, what up?
Too proud to beg for change, mastering the pain. When New York niggas was calling Southern rappers lame, but then jacking our slang.
But it's like this though. I'm tired of folks, you know what I'm saying? Them closed-minded folks, you know what I'm saying? It's like we got a demo tape and nobody want to hear it, but it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I got to say.
With Southern hip-hop remaining atop the genre's mountain for over 20 years now, it's easy to forget about the struggle that it had being integrated into the mainstream and the immense backlash that it faced after the fact. The constant disrespect of the MCs, being looked at as gimmicky, or not being considered actual rap at all. There's been a prevalent discourse about the South killing hip-hop since the 2000s, and the talking points seem to resurface almost annually. I vividly remember spending countless hours in rap chat rooms and on hip-hop forums back in the early to mid-2000s, around the time when Atlanta was really like a factory that was mass-producing rappers, and many of those threads and talking points from hip-hop purists at the time often cited how the South is failing to produce anything of substance. Many of these threads can actually still be Googled at this very moment. So in this video, we're going to do a brief overview of how Southern hip-hop went from being an afterthought during the East Coast and West Coast respective runs to its inevitable takeover of the industry. Let's get it. DJing, MCing, graffiti painting, and breakdancing. These things are considered the four elements of hip-hop. What originated as music to get you dancing, East Coast rap eventually began an evolution that took more of a turn toward both gritty and positive storytelling, political bars, and even love songs. As the 80s were coming to an end, the majority of the more notable and established acts were from the East Coast and the West Coast. With the rise of gangsta rap out west, there began a bit of a divide and a theme that would become recurring throughout the course of hip-hop history. And that's the theme of hip-hop purists, mostly from New York, labeling rap that was too different from theirs as trash or not real hip-hop. However, the West Coast continued to rapidly grow. While all of this East Coast-West Coast competition was brewing, the South was doing its own thing. The Ghetto Boys were among the first and more notable Southern acts to make a name for themselves in the mainstream. Two Live Crew can also be mentioned here as well. But in those times where the genre was just beginning to receive real mainstream and commercial recognition, it was an extremely tall task for rappers that weren't from either Cali or New York to get noticed. Other artists found success after establishing connection with the dominant areas, like what West Dallas's own DOC eventually did in the late 80s after his original group, the Fila Fresh Crew, disbanded. Still though, despite the moderate success of the South here and there collectively, the artists were an afterthought for many. The South was often stereotyped by the rest of the country as being a bit slower, and there were even random strays thrown out in music for almost no reason whatsoever.
You felt like, you know, New York hip hop was disrespecting the South originally, and you'd mentioned the Run DMC line from Run's House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where, I looked at the line, it says, "You dirty rat MCs, whoever you may be, need to go down south, you need to shut your mouth."
Yeah, yeah. Well, we was jamming the hell out of that song like a fool. We didn't even know we was being disrespected. It took me a while to catch it. I'm like, wait a minute, man. It sounds like he's saying like, you need to get the hell out of here. You know, like going down south is something to be frowned upon or something.
But as we moved more into the 1990s, there was a bit of an explosion in Southern talent. UGK arguably laid the foundation for trap music with Pocket Full of Stones, but that same sound can be accredited to a man by the name of Tommy Wright III, who was without doubt ahead of his time and a pioneer in that aspect as well, performing what he considered reality rap. You know, stories of what was literally going on in the streets. And then 8Ball and MJG injected a bit of that Memphis pimp culture into the game around 1993. See, the South had their own stories. Drugs, guns, violence, money, sex, and death. But despite the struggle and harsh circumstances that many live with day to day, there was still time to party and have fun as well. From Miami bass to bounce music to buck music, the South was developing quite a few layers that set it apart from the rest of the country. And these artists had a lot to say. Now obviously what I've discussed so far isn't me saying that the South never got features or support from anyone outside of the South itself. Artists like Kool G Rap and MC Lyte both embraced the South fairly early, and that's just to name a couple of examples. And we're talking rappers and producers both. Jermaine Dupri got quite a few cosigns, and Diddy even signed Carlos Brody, a producer born and raised here in Memphis, as one of his hitmen, and he'd go on to produce records like Somebody's Gotta Die on Life After Death and Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, and so much more. But throughout the mid to late 90s, the East Coast-West Coast beef that was going on eventually reached a breaking point, and ultimately the rap game took residual damage after the losses of Pac and Big. The game was in need of a bit of a palate cleanser, and what would come next would change the course of everything in hip-hop moving forward. Everyone understood that the top of the mountain was basically up for grabs and the game was wide open. The only thing left to do was work, and work they did. You see, as critical as the rest of the nation was towards Southern music, there was one thing that the South did better than anyone by far, and that was cooperate with one another. Now, the South may not have been known for lyricism, despite the fact that there were many amazing lyricists here, and one of them even gets thrown into top 5 discussions on this topic all the time, but the South was absolutely known for working together. That isn't to say that there was never beef among their rappers, but there wasn't nearly as much gatekeeping back then as there may be today. Everyone kind of looked at the grand scheme and knew that they could all get money together.
Like when you think of the South, you think of the money differential. Like you look at Gucci, you look at Shorty Low, you look at all of these new up and coming artists coming from the South. They coming in with their own money because the money is different in the South than it is in New York City. And how so? Is because the streets are different out there. It's a different type of like camaraderie. Like I did a song with like Killer Mike like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I flew down to ATL, and it was like the love that those guys have. It's a help me out type of mentality they got. Like if I got my foot in this door, I crack it open for you, and that's why you start to see them superseding artists from the north, because they know how to actually stick together and, you know, work together a little bit better, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like Gucci man does songs for everybody. You ain't gotta be
the biggest person. Nah, you don't.
You know, whereas like you look at a Jay and Jay rarely does a song.
Yeah, he only does songs with people that matter. And that's relevant to the moment. Like,
see, it's like down south, what thing you gotta understand, man, we ain't gonna let it go because we country. And we got little towns, plenty of them. And when the little town, look at Bankroll Freddy from West Helena, Arkansas, right by Memphis. I mean, I'm just saying, is he bumping? Yes, he is. And is it a lot more little towns in Arkansas and a lot of more young dudes like Bankroll Freddy? Yes, it is. And when they come out, is they gonna do good? I'm telling you right now, they gonna get their shot. Cause we ain't gonna because if you talk about what we want to hear, we gonna bump you. We ain't gonna never say, no, man, forget that dude. He from this, it ain't Atlanta, it ain't this. You see what I'm saying? We won't do that, bro. And that's why down south kept the game. Come on, man, look how long we had this game. Down south had the game for a while, bro.
Yeah.
That's why we got it, cause we not tripping. See what I'm saying? We let everybody get their money. We don't care.
So Outkast initially put the battery in the backs of many after the 1995 Source Awards, but after entering the 2000s, there really was no looking back. The crunk movement was massive, and Lil Jon became one of the most recognizable voices of all time. There was Texas chopped and screwed music, trap music, snap music, and even alternative southern rap from groups like the Nappy Roots began to soar on the charts as well. Eventually, the corporate machine would get behind a lot of it, and the push that resulted did not go over well with hip-hop fans across the country. There was a lot of not-so-subtle shade and mockery of some of the products being thrown out there.
What the fuck is this nigga playing? What the, and this nigga's dancing? I'm about to smack fire from this nigga, man. I'm about to turn this shit off, man. It's looking like a gay ass mother. What the fuck was that you was playing, man? I don't give a fuck.
Got it all. That means I'm barely home. Trailblazer, stay ballin' with vengeance. My arts is crafty dogs. Why y'all stuck with Laffy Taffy wondering?
And to be honest, I definitely had my hip-hop snob days when I was younger. It was easy to knock certain things that got a little bit too repetitive. But growing up was me realizing that there's a time and place for different types of hip-hop. Unfortunately, everyone wouldn't see it that way, and many of those talking points about who killed hip-hop would run rampant for years. In late 2006, Nas would release Hip Hop Is Dead, and many Southern artists and fans took issue with this because they believed Nas to be saying this only because the South was running the industry by this point. Young Jeezy actually confronted Nas about this, and Nas explained that this wasn't about the South or any particular artist. It was more so about the fact that hip-hop had gone corporate, resulting in the artists losing control of their craft. Between shady label deals cheating people out of ownership and talented artists having their prime placed on the shelf for something more trendy, he saw that as a problem, and that's fair. But the damage done by that verbiage has been irreversible since then. Soulja Boy specifically might have caught the most strays as an individual for the death of the genre overall. That's another stat for his record at first. As time moved on, it became clear that the South would not lose momentum anytime soon. And as of 2023, it's still going strong. After all the salt and hate that the South got in the early days, it's hard to imagine their sound being embraced by other regions, but here we are. And nowadays there are tons of non-Southern rappers who adopted a more Southern sound. In some ways it's funny to see how things have changed, but when you look at the majority of the people coming up in the rap game, you realize that they were literally born after the South had already bossed up. So that Southern sound is all many people ever knew. And this is also why I don't really consider them as biters, they're literal children. It's also on their OGs for not putting them on their respective classics. But be that as it may, the South definitely did have something to say. And to have over 20 years on top of the mountain that just celebrated its 50th, you have to respect it in some capacity. Many of the Southern pioneers don't get the flowers that they deserve for going against the grain and taking the ridicule from others telling them that they weren't good enough to be on the big stage. Being told that you're a gimmick or a fad or that you're too ignorant and incapable of producing anything complex or of substance, they just kept pushing. They understand that everybody can't relate to an experience in Queens or an experience in Compton. They push for the ones who had rap dreams but came from towns so small that no one famous would even visit. and ultimately they made it happen. If nothing else, I can't do anything but respect the hustle. And this is where I'll wrap the video up. If you made it this far, do me a favor, share this video on any social media platform of your choosing. Leave a like for me, leave a comment. Even if your comment is just to tell me I'm a jackass, you know, every little bit helps. Obviously, I couldn't mention everybody who ever did anything from the South in this video, and it wasn't about that, but it was more so to give an outline on where things started and how we got here. So give me your thoughts below, and I will catch y'all in the next one.